saved while everyone else splurged and borrowed. For years, I thought that meant I was blessed and they were just unlucky. Turns out, being the responsible one just makes you the family ATM with no overdraft protection. The wedding was supposed to be next Saturday, a beachside venue on the coast, with a ridiculous ivory and gold theme my sister insisted was classy, but looked more like a royal baby shower. I paid for half the venue deposit, booked the flights, even reserved the honeymoon suite in Cabo under my name because my mom's credit wasn't good enough to secure the reservation. And now, I wasn't welcome. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop and quietly logged into the travel portal I'd used for the honeymoon flights. 2 round-trip tickets, business class, under my email. I clicked cancel and watched the screen blink for a second before the $3,800 refund notification popped up. Then I went into my savings account and initiated a transfer, $6,500, the exact amount I had wired to my mom last month for what she claimed was wedding overflow costs. I didn't say a word to anyone, just watched the numbers move. I felt nothing, not anger, not even sadness, just a strange sort of calm, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. The first call came at 8:17 p.m. It was my sister. I let it ring. Then came my cousin, then my uncle, then mom. I turned off notifications and went about my night, reheating leftovers and watching a documentary I didn't absorb a second of. By morning, there were 23 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and a single message that made my hand go cold. Please call me. It's Dad. That stopped me. My dad usually stays out of the chaos. He's a quiet man, the kind who'd rather tinker with a busted coffee maker than get involved in family drama. When I was a kid, I used to think he didn't care. As I got older, I realized it wasn't that. He just picked his battles carefully. And for him to step into this one, something was off. But before I could process it, the voicemail started playing in my head, echoing even though I hadn't hit play. I imagined Sarah's whiny tone, Mom's theatrical sobbing, maybe a guilt-laced message from an aunt who hadn't texted me in 2 years. I wanted to delete them all. I really did. But that one message, from Dad, lingered. This didn't come out of nowhere. It started small. A sideways comment here. A joke there. Last Christmas, Mom said, "Well, at least Sarah will give us grandkids." Not everyone can say that. At the time, I laughed it off. I've never wanted kids, and I'm okay with that. But it stung in a way I didn't admit. Then, during Sarah's engagement dinner, I noticed I wasn't seated at the main table. Just to keep things even, Mom had said. But my younger cousin's boyfriend, who'd only been around for 3 months, was seated next to the groom. I swallowed that one too. Like always. They were always little paper cuts, never big enough to justify a confrontation. Until suddenly, they were. After Sarah got engaged, everything became an emergency. Mom called me in a panic over cake samples. Sarah had meltdowns about bridesmaid dresses. I was expected to cover whatever the groom's family didn't. And I did, because I thought helping meant belonging. I thought showing up with my wallet was how I proved I mattered. But it never bought me a seat. It just made me the unpaid intern of their fantasy wedding. And now I wasn't even invited. I sat on the edge of my bed that morning, my laptop still open, the email confirmation of the canceled flights glowing like a quiet middle finger. I scrolled through the missed calls, each name a little louder than the last. Then I got to the message from Dad. Just 6 words. "You need to see this now." That's when my stomach dropped. I stared at the message from Dad, my thumb hovering over the screen. "You need to see this now." 6 words, but they carried the weight of something heavier than guilt. My father has always been a man of few words, but every one of them is measured. He's not dramatic like Mom, not manipulative like Sarah, and definitely not the type to panic. So if he said I needed to see something, it wasn't going to be another teary voicemail or passive-aggressive family group chat post. I called him. He picked up before the second ring. "Kyle," he said, voice low. "You got a minute?" "Yeah," I said, and suddenly my mouth was dry. "What's going on?" There was a pause. I could hear the muffled thrum of a television in the background, then the volume clicked off. "I didn't know they were going to do that. Your mom and your sister. I just found out this morning, after they locked down the seating chart and made the announcement in the family group chat." "I'm not even in the group chat," I muttered, more to myself than him. "I know," he replied quietly. "That's part of it." Another pause. Then he said, "Kyle, they told everyone you chose not to come." That hit me harder than I expected. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. What? They said you were pulling one of your loner stunts. That you got upset over something minor and backed out. Sarah told the family you were always a bit dramatic, and this time you went too far. That you didn't want to be there. I laughed, sharp, bitter, humorless. So they kicked me out and made it my decision? Worse, he said. Your mom said you threatened to ruin the wedding if you came. That knocked the breath out of me. She what? Dad sighed, like he didn't want to be the one saying this. She told Sarah's in-laws you were emotionally unstable, still bitter about being single, and that you were jealous of your sister's happy ending. Said you were making everything about you, like usual. Like usual? My voice cracked. I had to stand up. My apartment suddenly felt like it was shrinking. I know, son, Dad said quickly. I know that's not who you are. I've watched you pick up every piece they dropped. You handled that entire engagement party, and no one thanked you. You paid off Mom's second credit card last summer without saying a word. You showed up every time they didn't. But they don't see that. Or maybe they do, and it threatens them. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. So this whole thing, this exile, was a setup? To make me the bad guy? Dad hesitated. Then, with an exhale, said, It's worse than that. They already started telling people you refused to fund the honeymoon out of spite. That's when I knew something had changed in me. Something broke, but not in the way I thought it would. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt detached, cold. Like I was watching a rerun of a show I used to care about but now knew all the plot twists too. They took the money, Dad, I said flatly. $6,500 wired to Mom's account for the honeymoon. I canceled the flights last night. The refund's already back in my account. He was silent for a moment. Then, softly, Good. It was the first time in years my father had supported one of my decisions that openly. He wasn't a man of grand gestures, but that one word meant everything. Then he added, There's something else. I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you need to see it. I heard rustling on the other end. Then the ping of a message coming through. I opened my phone. It was a screenshot. A group chat, Mom, Sarah, and a few of the aunts. My name was mentioned in the thread. Mom texted, Don't worry about Kyle. He's just sensitive because no one's ever loved him enough to marry him. I'll talk to him after the wedding, once he realizes how childish he's being. Sarah texted, He's a ghost. Let him fade. Just need to make sure he doesn't embarrass us. And Cheryl texted, So we're agreed. No +1 for him even if he begs? Mom texted, Exactly. No seat, no speech, no drama. He'll get over it. He always does. I read the messages twice, then a third time. And then I deleted them, not out of denial, but because I didn't need to see them again to know the truth. I'd always been an outsider in my own family. The helper, the fixer, the invisible glue. But glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks. And they were right about one thing. I wasn't going to beg. That evening, I sat down and began making a list, not of people to confront, but of systems to dismantle. They wanted me to fade quietly. But they'd forgotten something. I was the one holding the strings. The joint Costco membership with Mom? Canceled. The Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus family plans? Removed their profiles. The auto payments I'd been quietly making on Sarah's student loan? Disabled. And the best part, the venue deposit for the wedding? Still under my name. Technically, I was the primary contract holder. They'd never paid me back for that check I wrote to lock in the date. I'd been meaning to deal with that paperwork later. No? It was at the top of my list. As I stared at the contract, hovering over the cancel reservation option, I smiled for the first time that day. Because if they thought I was dramatic before, they hadn't seen anything yet. By Wednesday morning, the silence from my end had them spiraling. The voicemails went from passive-aggressive to desperate. Sarah's tone morphed with every message, first annoyed, then pleading. Kyle, can we talk? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Mom didn't mean it that way. I didn't respond. I listened with my arms crossed, each new message only confirming what I already knew. They were trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it was far too late for that. But I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of ego. This wasn't about lashing out. This was about letting go and making sure they felt it. That afternoon, I sat down with a black notebook and started writing out every account, every auto payment, every password-protected bill I had my name attached to. I wasn't dramatic. I was thorough. The irony? They called me the cold one, the robot, the one who didn't feel things like the rest of us. They were right in a way. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I calculated. I logged in. Mom's phone plan, which I'd been paying for since 2019 when she got laid off. Suspended. She wouldn't even notice until she tried to make a call during her hair trial on Friday. Sarah's Venmo, which was connected to my bank as a backup card, from when she overdrafted 3 times during college and never figured out how to remove it. Unlinked. And then I reported the suspicious charges on my account just for fun. Fraud protection is a beautiful thing. By Thursday morning, I had an email from the wedding venue. A polite but firm confirmation. Your cancellation request has been received. Per the contract, your deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured. I smiled. Let them explain that to the 118 guests flying in for a Saturday ceremony that suddenly didn't have a legal reservation. Around noon, my cousin Mark called. He's the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a tool. His voice was tired. Kyle, what's happening? I didn't lie. I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. He sighed. They're freaking out. Good. Sarah's having a meltdown. She's saying you're ruining her marriage. I gave a dry laugh. If a canceled flight and a frozen honeymoon fund ruins a marriage, maybe it wasn't built to last. He didn't argue. He just said, I wish you'd told me sooner. I always knew they leaned on you too much. That night, I opened my laptop again and logged into my dad's old Dropbox account, the one we used when I helped him digitize all the family records a few years back. Inside was a goldmine of scanned receipts, emails, even the original invoice from the engagement party that I paid for but Mom conveniently forgot I covered. I created a new Google Drive folder, uploaded everything, and titled it Contributions from Kyle Nobody Wanted. Then I copied the link and sent it to every family member on the group thread. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need one. Less than 5 minutes later, I was kicked out of the family chat. Perfect. But the real turn came Friday morning, the day before the wedding. I was sipping coffee, enjoying the quiet, when I got an email from the groom's mother, Linda. We'd met once. She was kind, poised, and very by the book. The kind of woman who kept her silverware aligned and said darling instead of sweetie. Her message was short, but it rattled me more than any voicemail. Subject, concern about the wedding. Hi Kyle, I wanted to reach out directly. I've heard bits and pieces about what's going on, and quite frankly, I'm alarmed. If you have a moment, could we speak? I feel like I'm missing some very important information. Best, Linda. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family gossip anymore. This was a thread unraveling from both ends. I called her. She answered immediately. Thank you for calling, she said, formal but with an edge of concern. I don't mean to overstep, but my son just informed me that the venue may have been canceled. It was, I said plainly. I paid the deposit. It was under my name. She was quiet for a second. That's not what we were told. I'm sure. Another pause. She cleared her throat. Kyle, I don't know what's been said, but I was told you declined to come, that you'd backed out because you were bitter. I let the silence hang, then asked, do bitter people usually pay for floral arrangements, the wedding cake, the DJ, and half the venue? Linda inhaled sharply. I was unaware of any of that. Of course you were. They needed someone to blame when I pulled out. And when I stopped funding it, they made sure to do what they always do, point the finger at me. Her voice lowered. I understand now why you've distanced yourself. I would have too. But, Kyle, there's something you should know. Sarah, she opened a joint credit card with your mom last week. And she used your name on the application. I froze. What? They claimed you co-signed. My husband caught it when we reviewed the final expenses. He recognized your name on the paperwork. That was it. That was the part that changed everything. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore. I was a target. I sat there, my coffee suddenly cold in my hand, the room closing in around me as Linda's words echoed in my ear. They claimed you co-signed. I hadn't. Not even close. I've always been careful about credit. Guarded, even. After watching Mom default on a car loan in my early 20s and drag her credit into the basement with mine tethered behind it, because yes, she had convinced me to co-sign that. I'd spent the better part of a decade fixing my financial reputation. I knew better. I hadn't signed anything for this wedding outside of what I paid for directly. Do you have a copy of the application? I asked Linda, my voice calm but clipped. I do, she said. Would you like me to send it to you? Immediately, please. A few minutes later, it landed in my inbox. There it was, staring back at me. An application for a high-limit wedding credit card with a forged digital signature. My name, address, social security number, even my old work email, probably lifted from tax forms or bank records they still had lying around. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. All these years, I'd been the fallback plan, the fixer, the silent financier. But forging my name? That wasn't desperation. That was entitlement soaked in fraud. That was theft. And it was the final straw. I filed a fraud report with the credit card company, took screenshots of every detail. Then I filed a police report. I attached the documentation, the forged application, and a notarized statement of non-consent. Then I picked up my phone, and for the first time since Mom's smug message that started all this, I called her. She answered on the second ring, like she'd been waiting. "Kyle," she said, her voice overly cheerful. "I was just about to call you." Stop," I said, flat. "I just want to hear it from you. Did you sign my name on a credit card application?" Silence. "Kyle, you're being ridiculous. That was just a backup in case the honeymoon ran over. You know how these things go. Did you sign my name?" A long pause. Then, "Sarah said you would have done it if you knew it was important." I let that hang there like a guillotine. "That's not an answer," I said, my voice cold. "But it's fine. You can explain it to the investigator when they call." That cracked her mask. "What? Are you serious?" "Kyle, we're family. You're really going to make this ugly over a little misunderstanding?" "Mom," I said, cutting her off, "you kicked me out of a wedding I paid for, lied to everyone about it, and committed fraud in my name. I didn't make this ugly. You did. I'm just putting it in the light where it belongs. Kyle, honey, please, we can fix this." I hung up. That evening, I drove to my dad's place. He was waiting for me on the porch with 2 beers and that silent, weathered look he always wore when things got heavy. "You okay?" he asked as I sat beside him. I nodded slowly. "Getting there." We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. He just handed me the beer and we watched the sun dip below the trees. "Eventually," he said, "you did the right thing." And somehow, that meant more than anything. The fallout came fast. First came the phone calls from family, my aunts, my cousins, even Uncle Greg, who hadn't spoken to me since 2016. They all wanted to know what was really going on, why the wedding was off, why Sarah had posted a cryptic Instagram story